Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
I'm John.
This is my pal Brian.
And welcome to another episode of We'll Play Again, where we take a look at games we've recently got to the table and with a view of how soon we're going to get them back to the table, and we answer the question of, would we play again? Today we have Flamme Rouge, not just a broken Brian, so hence why that was on the intro. But in Flamme Rouge, it's a racing game, and you are cyclists going through the mountains of France and the Alps, I believe, and it's a race game. But at its core, it's driven by decks of cards for your sprinter and for your roulette, and essentially it's first past the post, furthest past the post will win. Throughout the race, you will be choose one of your racers. You will draw 4 cards for that racer. You will then take a look at one of those cards and you will blindly select one so nobody else knows what you're doing. Put the other 3 face up underneath your deck. Then you will pick 4 cards for your other rider, select them, pop them face down, and slip the others under your deck. Everybody does that, and then we all reveal. And then in race order, the person at the front will go, followed by the next person, followed by the next person. So we'll just resolve this through.
4 for my roulette.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And your sprinter.
4 for my sprinter.
Following up. And then for my roulette, it's 4 for my roulette.
4 for my roulette.
4 for my sprinter.
And 4 for my sprinter.
And that's not a very exciting round. So typically you would then have a slipstream. So if Brian had actually moved 5 with his roulette, everybody moves up 1 and anybody in a gap would move up 1. So if a gap's created, you flow forward to give the sense of that slipstreaming. As you go around the track, you may potentially be navigating obstacles such as these hills. In the red zone, for instance, you can play a card, but it will only ever act as high as a 5. Or when you go into the blue area, which will be downhill, any card that you play acts as a 5 or more. So you could play a 6 to come off it, but you could also play a 2 and it would act as a 5 as long as you're in those zones. So you're strategically using your deck to pick those points in the race and then essentially going through the whole race, pushing through to the finish, getting through there. Now, the reason why you've got 2 decks is obviously you've got 2 riders, but they do things slightly differently. So you will have your key card for your deck, and in the key card it will essentially say how many of each speed are there in each deck. And your sprinter has a couple of 9s, whereas your roulette only has a maximum of 7. So the idea being is you keep your sprinter behind your roulette until they need to power through to the finish. As you saw in the turn, we'll be putting those 3 cards underneath the deck so that we will come back later. The only thing that we didn't do in that turn was the leader of the pack at the end of that turn takes an exhaustion card. Now these are just worth 2 and they will essentially slow people down. So you don't always want to be leading. And if John had managed to get all the way up to the top, he would also get one as well. So you don't really want to be leading it. And again, if we had another pack, I would have got one at the start of that pack. So you don't really want to be leading packs as best you can. So it does bring on the theme quite well of a cycle race. You don't want to be at the front. You want to mingle in the group and then plough out those points.
I think this is the beauty of the game. It's managing that leading the race and being in the pack and that exhaustion and how much you take on. And how far you go with your cards. I mean, we've all did 4s there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're all being quite cagey, not wanting to go fast.
So we played it together before, but if you're a new player to this is where you might suffer because you don't necessarily understand that mechanic. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be quite generous bringing new players into this game to help them to learn that as they're playing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've played any sort of deck builder, you can understand things like exhaustion, i.e. clank, where you take in and clank on board cards that are going to give you those clank and stumbles or any sort of negative effects in there. But if you've not played it, because this is relatively light, there's a bit of tactics in it, but it is relatively light, you might not quite understand that.
It's fairly easy to learn, but it's very difficult to master, I think. And even now I struggle to really understand how best to work together with my cards to my riders to get the best effect out of them. You've got to look at other people, what they're doing. There's a bit of card counting involved. You are allowed to look at your previously played cards that are now face up on your deck, but you can't look at everybody else's. So you've got to remember what they've played as well. So it can get a bit of a head scratcher, especially toward the end of the game where you're just putting out lots of exhaustion cards. And
what underlies that is the simplicity and elegance in the gameplay. It's almost like a strip back as Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride. It's just that simple. You look at your cards, you move your cyclists, you can only go so far or go faster down the hills, you go again. And you're shedding those cards all the time, so you can be whistling your deck down. If you go early and get rid of your 7s and 9s, you could be so far ahead, the other cyclist's going to catch you up. But it's also balancing that exhaustion and just sticking in the pack and staying there, so you can use those higher cards later on. It's for what it is. It's a lovely game, and the 2 expansions. I've got the Peloton that adds in additional bikes and also adds in different strips of land. So there's wider ones where you can go 3 abreast, but also cobbles which add in penalties for movement, and then the Meteo one gives you weather as well. So if it's wind and rain, I love watching the cycling. I love the Tour de France on the telly. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think this captures that pack mentality of them all sticking together to maintain the speed, and the sprints at the end really well.
And as you say, there's loads of different routes. The tiles are double-sided. So although there's some routes that you could lay out following the instructions given, you are encouraged to make your own maps up as well. So there's loads of replayability with this.
Yeah, and the app, there's a nice app as well, which you can record plays. So you could do a full, like a 21 stage tour, and it records the results and adds in time penalties for first and last. So you build up leaders and stuff, and you can come back from last place to first place. And it also adds in more tracks as well, which I think is really good.
Yeah, so we played a campaign like that.
Yeah,
that was really exciting to come back to it again.
This, because it's synchronous play and you're all turning over together. There is plenty of player interaction and banter and coming from the back, and especially when you come up to the finish, it can be really quite nervy and quite am I going to do it? Am I going to do it? And you know in your hand you've got 2 4s or 2 3s, and you've got rather than the sprints. The
amount of times you come up with a handful of 2s right at the end, and you just think, that's my game completely gone.
And this is where you need to manage that, being at the front or sitting at the back and just being in the pack. It works really well. It's a lovely balance.
Getting caught or not caught in the hills is key, because so
position is key.
So one of the key mechanics is when you are going up, you can go essentially 2 abreast. The next person up, if they are able to move through, can do. But if they were due to stop there, they actually stop a zone short, which is fine for most of the race. But if you're then stopping here, you could potentially be stopped from entering the uphill bit or the downhill bit, which could really scupper what you're intending to do. And from that sort of side of it, you can really struggle with when things happen, and you are reliant on what other people are doing a little bit. And actually knowing that, for instance here, Brian going in first and second could know, well actually I'm just going to clog this up. No, unless they've got a big card, they're not going to get past me. Me and John could just then go, well fine, I'm going to burn a 9. I'm just going to plough past you, and I'm going to take the lead, and I'm going to go from the pack there. And getting that timing right of when you do those things and how you do those things, it's quite key. And it's nice. There's a lot of, like we've said, a lot of replayability in this, but there has to be, because it's only a half-an-hour game.
Yes.
Yeah.
You blink and it's over.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of embodies the race mentality that it's got. There's very few race games out there that I think does this well, because at the end of the day, in a board game, you are sitting around a table, doing actions, playing cards, moving pieces around the board. Unless it's a real-time game for any reason, it's not a race.
No.
And I think it encapsulates the race and the cycling very well.
Yeah. I think the mechanics of it nail that really, like you say, really well, and it does build tension towards the end because you're managing your deck of what you've got do you go early, do you go late? I mean, for instance, you're coming off this downhill here. If you've got high cards and you can play them, you can streak off and you may, you know, just pull it out. But again, can you stay ahead for that much of the race? Can the others pull it back? It's such a great little balance game. I mean, and the box has just got so many awards on it because it and that tells a tale of its own, that it is that good.
Yeah.
There is a new version, was mooted for 2020, Flamme Rouge Grand Tour, which different pieces. 2022, don't know where that is now. May been put back because of the COVID outbreak, etc., etc. But there is Pedals to the Metal, which is a car racing version of this that's just been released. But you only have one car, and you play a number of cards for what gear you're in, and you get wear and tear on your car. And other rules. It's got an expanded slight rule set, so that would be interesting to play, and I'd like to see how that is. But yeah, I'd be very interested in the Grand Tour version when that comes out.
Yeah, it's been one of the standout games. It fits in that filler slot of half an hour, but whenever we've had it, it's never been one game. We've brought another game along, and it's always been okay. Well, we'll play another one of these. We'll play another one of these. Another one of these.
And the app allows you to record progress halfway through or at the end, so you know how many seconds people are and ahead and behind, so it works out quite well.
Yeah, my only negativity to this is the setup, because you have to find all the tile pieces to put it together.
Little letters or numbers in the corner, and you got to find them through the thing. And
yeah, I mean, it's a small problem to have, but it
can sprawl. You do need a fair amount of table to do it, but it's better than, you know, it's not just one long strip. The corners and stuff, even though it could be one strip with just the red and the blue zones, the corners and stuff just make it a little, you know, give it a nice look, nice table feel.
Indeed. So with that all said, John, would you
yes, I'll play again soon. It's a lovely game. It hits a little spot for me and it works so well. I don't think there's anything in there that detracts from it. I just think the whole package, it's good. Yes, soon. Thank you.
I'll play again. I like it. I think I'd like to like it more than I actually do. I don't know why that is. I think it's maybe just the complexity, the way the cards interact with each other. I haven't quite got that in my head yet. So I just feel I don't really understand the game as well as I ought to.
So maybe there's a bit of feel bad on there that
just
doesn't
I
work.
really can't get it to
No. And for me, it's play again soon. I think I hinted on this. Nothing quite captures racing like this does. And I think, you could go to real time. You could look at a few other different games. I think I like racing in general, mainly motorsport opposed to cycling. But there's nothing out there that I think for me captures it as well as this does. So for me, it's a We'll Play Again soon. So fantastic. Thank you for joining us for another episode of We'll Play Again. If you haven't done so already, check out our other videos on the channel. Give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Au revoir.